vegetation on the nose bill. They did all that and redesigned this train, and no sonic booms with the front of this train the way it is. The train's design is now based on the Kingfisher's design, but the Kingfisher evolved through random processes. Right. Bat echolocation. I had to do a report once in my biophysics class on bats. Again, I'm not going to read all of that. That's for people that are really more interested in the details, the technical details of this. But bats actually Doppler shift their frequencies. Their little tiny brains Doppler shift the frequencies that they emit, so that as they're flying, their brains are processing their speed, their closing range, their rate of closing range on the moth or whatever insect they're trying to get in the middle of the night, in the dead of night, so that they're optimizing their sonar capabilities. So they have the ability to Doppler shift their frequencies to compensate for their closing speed. There are scientists in Japan that are studying this about bats to try to figure out how the little brains can organize and process all this information as they're flying, closing in, to try to miniaturize it in a small micro-miniature electronic device that might be put on a person's eyeglass, their frame on their eyeglasses, for blind people, to have them plugged in, have these little sonar signals going out, and help blind people to see where things are. Again, that just evolved, but hey, we're designing it, and we're trying to use it. We got intelligent engineers working on this, top men. So, again, God designed this thousands of years ago. So Doppler radar, it's interesting that one of the news services makes a big deal about Doppler radar for weather.
Yeah,
we can tell you what the weather is on your street. And I say to that, I can look out my window and call you up and tell you what the weather on the street is. I don't need a multi-million-dollar machine. Anyway, this woman named Janine Yes, she's what's called a natural resource manager. She's actually involved in this work to try to exploit the design found in nature. She says, we're astounded by genius. And it's ironic that as a naturalist, she would be quick to add that this genius and innovation is the result of what hundreds of millions of years of evolution can accomplish. That's what she believes. That hundreds of millions of years of evolution accomplished this. And it's like, well, you're blind. You're blind, lady, to the truth. Anyway. So, bioweapons, okay? They also invalidate Darwinian evolution. Here's something interesting. Again, going back to Darwin, what Darwin said, the two things he said in his book. One was, if you can show me an example of something that could not have evolved through numerous successive random processes, it would, invalidate my theory. Or if you could tell me that there were two different species that co-evolved somehow, that now they are mutually beneficial to one another, it would annihilate my theory. Okay? So here's an example. We've seen things that have destroyed his theory, invalidated his theory. Here's something that annihilates his theory. The tobacco plant hornworm symbiosis. So there's a tobacco plant, and I don't know if tobacco plants are in the same family, nightshade family, as a tobacco, as a tomato plant, but you're going to see the tobacco worm here, hornworm. Looks very similar to tomato worm, actually, with a little horn on the back, and there's the adult version, the moth, the hornworm moth. Well, what happens is that the tobacco plant, when it starts sensing that the hornworm is chewing on its leaves and eating it up, it emits these volatile organic compounds. The tobacco plant does. It emits these organic volatile compounds. They're very evaporative. Okay. After a herbivore attack by this tobacco hornworm caterpillar, the organic compounds attract other insect predators, mainly a large wasp, that eat the eggs deposited by the moth, okay, the hornworm's moth on the leaves, thus reducing the hornworm's population and greatly reducing further damage to the plant. So there's a form of chemical warfare here going on, where the tobacco plant is releasing pheromones, I think, that attract this wasp, and the wasp eats the eggs, so it mitigates or minimizes future attacks of the hornworm population to the plant, annihilating Darwinian theory. I'm not sure if Darwin was aware of this process, probably not, but now you've all seen and heard about the bombardier beetle. Okay. Whoops, he just blew himself up. Oh well, there's the end of that line. Anyway, instead of talk, oh, he didn't make it.
Game over.
Okay, so natural selection would allow one-time mistakes, which would end that evolutionary process. So anyway, I've got another little video about this as well. They say pictures are worth 1,000 words. Maybe videos are worth 1,000,000 words. Is that
One of the really amazing things about this animal is its ability to spray in a very beautifully aimed fashion. And that shows up very nicely when you put the animal on indicator paper. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pinch very lightly one leg after the other, just as if I were an ant biting these legs. I'm going to start with the right hind leg, right front leg, left front leg. In fact, in nature, a beetle would actually be able to walk away through a swarm of ants after having discharged only once. Well, he's performed. I'm going to take him off the wax, which is very easy to do, and put him back. Oops. You probably heard that. Just fire. I felt it because the spray is hot. Bombardier beetles, when they spray, are really producing a chemical explosion, which not only produces sound, but also produces heat. Now, if one wants to measure that temperature, one cannot use a conventional thermometer, because the explosions are very short, only a few thousandths of a second. You need a special thermometer, an electronic thermometer, which responds very quickly to a very short production of heat. Now, let me just move the back ever so slightly. Okay. Thermometer is on. And there we go. 10, 20, 50. It's about 90, 95 degrees.
And those are centigrade degrees. It's
We've actually been recording the sound that the beetle produces. There's a microphone in the back of the tube that picks up the sound, and there's a tape recorder on which we've recorded the sound. Now, one of the remarkable things is that there's information in that sound. We can find out about that information if we slow the sound down. We can do that. We can watch the sound on the oscilloscope at the same time that we listen to the slowed down version.
The oscilloscope shows clearly that the spray is pulsed. The next step is to see it.
There we go.
They set up a camera to film it in slow motion.
I'll use the word on camera. Let me get close to that leg first. Not quite yet. Go.
At 400 frames per second, the action has been slowed down, but not enough to see the individual pulses. So they went to a lab and filmed the beetle at an even faster speed, at an incredible 4,000 frames a second.
Oh, that is.
There were the pulses, each one corresponding to the individual bursts of sound.
He moves his legs out of the way.
And that wasn't the end of the story. They were intrigued by the mechanism of a weapon that could pulse explosions.
Directed.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Inside the rear of the beetle, there's a pair of glands
And it does it
Explosions
4,000
are
times a
repeated one
second.
after the other, each forming a separate pulse of spray. The beetle makes explosions in sequence because the reaction chamber is too small to handle more than a little explosive at a time. A big reaction chamber could handle more explosive, but the heat produced would make things too hot for the beetle itself.
Terrific.
So there's another example of something that could not have evolved. It had to have been formed, designed that